Hello, BookTube. I recently saw a video on CriminOlly's channel where he breaks down the schematics by which he gets his reading done, complete with flow charts and in and output and throughput and working harder and smarter, not faster, and whatever, and also spreadsheets. Such a spreadsheet. It was amazing. It's amazing to see. I'll leave a link to it down below. Especially if you want some ideas on how to get control of your own reading life. That it will be invaluable for that. And Michael K. Vaughan did a response outlining his own reading master plan for 2023, at least. And that got me thinking that I would like to know all of your reading master plans for 2023. I mean, we all do it, right? To one extent or another, whether we're sort of bumbling blindly or whether we're spreadsheeting things within an inch of their life, we all make a kind of plan. Not only what we're going to read in the upcoming year, but how we're going to read, when we're going to read, that sort of thing. What format we're going to read, what percentages is that going to take, and is it going to stay the same, or was there a clear winner in the previous year? All that sort of thing. We all make reading master plans, including me. So I thought to get the ball rolling, I would outline my own reading master plan for 2023. And it breaks down into three categories. The first category is new releases. Those of you who watch this channel for any length of time will know that that is the kind of reading bailiwick that I have set for myself. We all do it. We all set reading bailiwicks for ourselves, whether it's carved in stone and very discreet and describable, or whether it's a little vaguer than that. But you know for sure whether or not you're going to be reading car manuals or gardening manuals in the upcoming year. You know for sure whether or not you're going to be, or whether or not you're maybe going to read only that. And I'm the same way. My reading bailiwick for years and years and years has been the new releases in the American book market in the 15 or 16 genres that I am legitimately interested in. I'm not covering the ground just to cover the ground. I'm actually interested in these things. But the vast majority of the reading that I will do in 2023 will be new releases. Now, in the American book market, generally speaking, for the general interest readership, probably 200,000 books are coming out. I'm going to read a tiny, tiny fraction of that amount. But I'm hoping that the fraction that I read will be a fairly fair representative sampling of the new releases in those genres. And that's probably 90% of what I'll be reading in 2023. And I don't mean to make it sound like a chore. As you know, if you watch this channel, it overjoys me. Even when it infuriates me, it overjoys me. And that heading itself has subheadings. Once upon a time, it had fewer subheadings than it does now, but it still does. For instance, underneath the umbrella of new releases in the American book market will be the relative handful of books that I am commissioned to review, where I'm not just reading them, but where there's money on the table, there's a contract on the table, there's an audience that it comes into picture, and then there's also the subheading of books that I am going to review even though I'm not getting paid to do it. There's a large number of that. I'm obviously not in the reviewing game for the money. I don't know what you've heard about the pay scales in the reviewing game, but I'm not. I'm not in the reviewing game for the money. I'm in it to be part of what I always refer to as the conversation. New releases spark conversations. Some of them spark far smaller conversations than others, and I love that. I absolutely love that phenomenon. I loved it when I was a reader before I'd reviewed a single book. And I love being part of that conversation where when a new release comes out, there's a long, maybe if the new release is lucky, there's a long list of people who've weighed in on it for an audience. And I'm one of those people. That feels wonderful to do. And that's what I'm in this for. And one of the measurable aspects of being part of that conversation is that it's seeable. It's actually measurable so that you know that. One concrete way of doing that is if a blurb from your review shows up on the paperback release of a book. Well, then not only does everyone know, can look at it and see that you were part of that conversation, but readers in lands unknown and accents yet unheard can see that. You will have no way of controlling that. That's happened to you, I'm sure. You have noticed a blurb on an old book that you really liked. Never mind what you thought about the book. You really liked the blurb. It's happened to me more times than I can count. I am now part of that process. And that feels great. And it is no respecter anymore, thanks to the internet and the sort of Catholicism, like Catholicity, small c, of all of our reading, that's no longer 100% tied to the venue. Once upon a time it was, but it's not anymore. I joined more conversations more fruitfully, got more blurbs on books, got more notice from the unpaid work that I did for Open Letters Review in 2022 than I did for far more noticeable, far bigger venues. I really think, I've said this for a few years now, but I really think it comes down to the audience that you yourself have assembled, regardless of the venue. I mean, you can be the biggest fan in the world of, Jane Smith, who writes for, the Daily Current or whatever. You could be the biggest fan in the world of maybe her podcast, or maybe she has a YouTube channel or something like that. But if you follow a link of hers to a venue of hers, a major venue of hers, and you hit a paywall, you're not going to pay. You're just going to do without. So I really think it's a question of accessibility and audience. Certainly it seemed that way in 2022. So there's both of those. There's the stuff that I'm commissioned to review, and there's also the large number of books that I get and immediately know, oh, I am going to review this. I want the author, I want the publicist, I want my reading public, my readers, to know what I thought about this. I want them to know that I read it and that it had an effect, that it wasn't just a tree falling in the forest. And unfortunately, in 2023, I have come begrudgingly to realize that that category has changed. Once upon a time, if I had said the broad category was new releases in the American book market, I wouldn't really have drawn any kind of distinction over what was or was not potentially reviewable. I might have drawn a distinction over where I could get money, who would pay me to review something, but I wouldn't have said, irrespective of money, I wouldn't have done that, because any book would fall under my purview. If it got my goat, or if I loved it, I wanted to sing its praises and no one had heard of it, well, then all of it was fair game, and that's not true anymore. There's a large subset of books growing every year instead of shrinking. A couple of years ago, I hoped it would be shrinking by now, but it's growing. There's a large subset of books that not only don't expect to be reviewed, but that will be very, very angry if they are reviewed. There's a large subset of books by writers of privileged classes, by protected classes, they're protected classes of book, that they appear, but they are really kind of non-books. They're not part of that conversation, and they don't want any part of that conversation. They're not out there to be assessed. They're out there as sort of engorged Twitter posts. And the most that you can do if you want to respond to one of those books, the most that you can do is sort of, Z-snap Yaz Queen. But you can't do anything more than that. You can't say, boy, this was great, but the pacing was a little bit slodgy. You can't do that. You'll lose all of your employment, book-related or otherwise, and probably have your house attacked. Probably terrorism. So there's a large protected category of books now that's growing that aren't really books at all. You're not able to weigh in on them. You're not allowed to do that. You may be able to praise them if you have certified status as a quote-unquote ally. If you're just some, rando Calrissian, it is assumed that you are a long list of bigots. That your bigotry is a long list. Just assume that. That's just assumed before you even open your mouth. You don't have to say anything about the book. It's just assumed that you are a garbage person on the wrong side of history. And no book reviewer, myself included, I'm as pugnacious a book reviewer as they get, but no book reviewer wants that. No book reviewer wants to step in a quagmire like that. Like most reviewers, I encounter a book like that that's just radiating attitude, and I give it a wide berth. I walk well around it. I try not even to mention that it exists, much less try my hand at reviewing it. So that's a subcategory of new releases that was non-existent 10 years ago. And now is, I won't say it's large, but it is sizable. It's bigger than it ever has been. But that's category number one, is new releases. And that's a huge amount, whether leaving aside the protected category of books by privileged authors who really do enjoy privilege. In other words, they're untouchable. Leaving that aside, there's still two other categories for my reading overview in 2023, my reading master plan. Another category is non-new releases. So it's still my same 15 or 16 genres, but stuff that isn't that isn't a new release. There's no, if I'm writing in a venue for new release reviews, there's no way that I could mention it. No way I could write about it. But I still do actively read it. That would include, paperback reprints of stuff from 2 years ago or a year ago. And that would also include all of the older stuff that I find at charity shops or at the Brattle Bookshop. A large proportion of that stuff goes into my reading. Anyway, that is, I find it very, very valuable to cross-pollinate new releases with older books. I would do that anyway, but it's also tremendously valuable for helping to think about new releases, which is kind of the most of what I do. I love it. So when I am shopping for books at the Brattle, for instance, the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, I'm finding stuff that's actively going to go on the reading list. It's not just going to go on a pile somewhere. Same thing with finds elsewhere. Somebody writes a review about Lark Rise at Candleford in the New Yorker. I'm almost certainly going to want to read that book again. I'm fairly biddable along those lines, or maybe a new discovery at Project Gutenberg, something like that. I like to keep a certain percentage of my year's master plan open to serendipitous older books, serendipitous discoveries, unplanned reading along those lines. Not that new releases is entirely planned. I don't ever know 100% sure what's coming. And I'm omnivorously interested in all of it, absolutely all of it. And then there's the third category of my reading master plan. There's new releases, there's non-new releases, and then there's BookTube, which again 10 years ago did not exist. For me, I wouldn't have even thought about this, but I am a booktuber. And although I am largely an outcast and a pariah in the BookTube community, I still love that community and pay a lot of attention to it. I watch a lot of BookTube. I pay attention to what people are reading, what trends they're following, what things they're looking to reinvestigate. And I'm very open to that sort of thing. I'm very biddable when it comes to that. Some booktuber that I watch and really enjoy, even if we don't agree on anything, they mentioned, I was at a little free library, I was at a thrift shop, and I came across this book, and I've never heard of it before, and I want to give it a try, and I will see that book, and I will think, okay, before this booktuber was born, you read that book and closed your mind on the subject. But it's time to open your mind again. It's time to go at it again. That sort of thing is invaluable to me. Just all the non-new release stuff is invaluable. And the sheer accidental nature of BookTube, the way I can never tell what anybody's going to come across and whether or not they might tempt me to read it again. That's wonderful. I wouldn't do without that. And that's of course, that leads into another active element of the reading master plan for 2023 that Michael K. Vaughan spends quite a bit of time on in his video. I'll link to him and Ollie, but I want to hear from all of you. I want to know your master plan for 2023, if only so that at the end of 2023, we can all gather over wine and calzones here at Hyde Cottage and heave a toast to shattered dreams. How we didn't do anything. How we didn't do any of the things that we were expecting to do. If only to do that. And needless to say, the element that Michael K. Vaughan talked about and that's part of reading connected with BookTube is BookTube events. There are lots of them. In any given year, there are lots of them. And they will determine some of what I read in that third category. There are ongoing BookTube events for the whole of 2023, like Historathon, or Classics and Company, or Roger's Cheap Old Book Club on Michael K. Vaughan's channel, or my own book club. I have launched a book club this year, the Steve Tiberius Donoghue Book Club. Those go on all year long. But then there are events there are lots of others too that go on all year long. But then there are events that are specific to months. Like we're coming up on February. That will be the inaugural Debuary, when we read at least one, but up to 3 books picked by my old friend Deb. That's Debuary. That's right around the corner. There's March. And March is March Mystery Madness. That's a venerable BookTube event where I don't know if I'm co-hosting. I hope I am for this year. I've co-hosted a lot of years of March Mystery Madness. I love to. I love reading murder mysteries. I love talking about them. And in March Mystery Madness, we talk all about murder mysteries. Then there's the Ides of BookTube in March, where each one of us takes at least one recommendation from a booktuber. in hopes of not being stabbed in the back, in hopes of surviving, in hopes that it's not just a conspiracy to kill you. You pick one book, and no fairsies picking a book that a booktuber mentions that you already know you love. No fairsies. And also March of the Mammoths in March, where if it's still going on, it's an event dedicated to reading enormous books, reading books that are 800 pages or more. Those behemoths that tend to sit on your shelf and stare at you. You don't want to do that. You don't want any more. March of the Mammoths is when you pull those down and read one. And then there's April. We have April Showers, a booktube event dedicated to reading books about water in some way or other, however, not nautical books. Mark is just going, not nautical books, but books somehow dealing with water. Fiction, nonfiction, memoir, doesn't matter. Nature books, that sort of thing. But April is also the month of Slapril, where we go from the peace and quiet of water to books about murder. And they don't have to be. This is not encroaching on March Mystery Madness. This is, it can be nonfiction. Or it can be, for instance, a fiction that has a murder at its center, but that no one would ever consider a murder mystery. There are plenty of those. It can be history. If murder is at the center of the story, Slapril is blood-drenched, a blood-drenched event in April. Then we have May. May has maybe Midrash, if it's still going on this year. Maybe Midrash is when we do serious, respectful, thoughtful talk about religious texts. Not necessarily the text of your own religion, but just some religious text. Utterly fascinating when those videos come out. There aren't as many of them as I would like, but they're fascinating when they do. And May is also the month for Louisa May Tube, where we celebrate Louisa May Alcott. Not necessarily by reading Little Women, but by anything that she wrote or anything about her. Tons of stuff out there. Tons and tons of stuff. Then there's June. And June is, of course, June on the Range. Michael K. Vaughan himself inaugurated June on the Range last year. 2 hosannas of praise. I kind of thought that the book would be, that the event would be niche popular, but it was overwhelmingly popular. People loved it. And a lot of people, it's when we read Westerns. A now much maligned and largely dead genre that was once upon a time incredibly popular. A lot of people read their first Westerns ever with last June on the Range, and I encountered a whole bunch of authors for the first time. Western authors were absolutely legion. So with June on the Range, I'm presuming we'll ride again in June. And June is also the first month of summer box office, which is going on for 3 months in the summer. So your BO is going to last all summer long. Summer box office month 1, month 2, and month 3, all summer long. And they're all about the book-to-movie connection that you've seen on Sean D. Standfast channel, where we talk about the book-to-movie connection. Like, for instance, the easiest way to do summer box office all summer long would be to pick one theatrical new release that's based on a book. Read the book, watch the new release, and then just make a video about it. But there's all kinds of other ways. Millions and millions of books have been written on or about or around all kinds of cinematic releases. So, and keep in mind, it's 2023, so we're not talking about just theaters anymore. I think the purest iteration of summer box office would be to go and see the movie in the theater, but I'm not going to do that. So no one else can be expected to do that. You also have giant plasma screen TVs on your wall, so it can be a movie that you watch there. It can be an older movie. It can be an HBO original, an HBO series or something like that. It's a wonderful variety. And then we move on to July, the dog days of summer. We have July and the No-Fly, an event in which the he-men of BookTube get together to talk, and a few he-women, if they're interested, get together to talk about all things military. July and the No-Fly is military books. Doesn't have to be nonfiction. It can be fiction, but stuff that centers around armed conflict. So keep in mind, no Fox News style war, where war on Christmas or war on house slippers or something like that. No, it has to be actual people dying. But July and the No-Fly is a broad open event. You read one military thing in July and you've participated. The same thing for July is summer box office month 2. Summer box office, your BO is going to last all summer long. So summer box office is just more the book-to-movie connection, somehow, in some way. Then in August, we have Garb August, just like June on the Range, another inaugural event from 2022, this time by CriminOlly, that, just like June on the Range, feels like it's been part of BookTube forever. And lots of people participated and had a blast. And that's where Ollie makes us read trash. where we all read trash. Now, in Garb August 2022, I did my best as a lone voice crying in the wilderness to say, let's keep Garb August nice and trashy. Let's not anybody make a video saying that this piece of obvious trash really isn't. Well, actually, let's leave the trips to the well, actually, out of Garb August. I'm hoping that stays true in 2023. And also, August, of course, wraps up Summer BO, your horrible batch of Summer BO, Summer Box Office, month 3. Then we move on to September, which is not only Shake-tember, if it's still continuing, which is a month-long celebration of Shakespeare, but also Snake-tember, where we take the most despised member of the animal kingdom and read about it. Can be a Conan novel with a giant snake, can be a novel about that has snakes in it somehow, can be nonfiction, natural history, that sort of thing, of snakes somehow. Read one snake-related book in September, and you have participated in Snake-tember. Then there's October. We have Sherlocktober, which is Sherlock Holmes, not just the canonical stories and novels, but also all of the pastiche stuff, wide open for a million different books to read. There's also October, October, in which we celebrate cephalopods. October is celebrating cephalopods. So does that mean you're reading for the millionth time 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? Are you reading some other novel about a killer octopus? Are you reading a memoir about someone who knows octopuses? Are you reading an older work of natural history? Are you reading perhaps something tentacle related? It's all on the plate, so to speak, for October. And then there's Victober. In October, another venerated booktube event, all about the Victorian era. Tons and tons of hosts, tons and tons of prompts, and all sorts of guidelines. But really, like all of these events, you're definitely enthusiastically participating if you just read a piece of Victorian literature in October. And same thing with Rocktober, which is all about rocks. Whether it's a novel, a comic book, or natural history. And here you let your imagination go wild. Is it a rock in the form of a meteor that kills the dinosaurs? Is it a rock in the form of some engaging work about geology or volcanology? Rocktober, you could easily read about the death of Pompeii. In a way, you could certainly do that. You just have to stretch it to fit your imagination. And then there's November. See what I mean? The events just pile on. There's New Worlds November. I'm hoping that continues, where the Bookish Bryants talk about science fiction. Invite you all to read science fiction. There's Chronovember, which is books about time. Now you can cover that with New Worlds November by reading about time travel. It doesn't have to be that. There are a whole bunch of mainstream books that deal with all sorts of dipsy doodles with time that very few people, or if anybody, would consider time travel. Time after time, Jack Finney is never in the science fiction section of a bookstore. People never list it as a science fiction book, and there are plenty of others. The Time Traveler's Wife. I don't think most people would group that under standard science fiction. And there's also tons and tons of nonfiction that would fit in Chronovember, that's about time in one way or another. And then there's Cro-Magnovember, where we are reading about pre-humans. Or, if not necessarily pre-humans, because humans might have been around at the same time, extinct species of humans. Extinct hominins of one kind or another, whatever they are. And this is, again, wide open to interpretation. Plenty of fiction along those lines. Plenty of science fiction along those lines, but also plenty of nonfiction that just broadly fits under the heading of Cro-Magnovember. So you can, again, let your imagination go wild. And then in November, also rounding out November, of course, is one of the biggest booktube events of them all, Nonfiction November, which, keep in mind, will work for a lot of these other events and all the events that I haven't listed. One of the little logistical keys, I don't know if you want to make a spreadsheet about it, but one of the logistical keys to getting a lot of these events done at the same time is to fold them into each other. There are all sorts of expert ways to do that. And Nonfiction November is bound to make that easy because every year Olive comes up with these broad but very intriguing guideline prompts that's bound to be no different this year. That could fit anything. And then there's December, but on December you're kind of on your own. I have finally learned my booktube lesson. I don't make plans for any part of December. So there are plenty of events in December. Vlogmas, I think, is probably the most venerable of them all, but there are lots of others. You're on your own for that, but you see what I mean. All of those events are going to prompt my reading master plan. They're all going to shape it and nudge it in one way or another. Because I'm not going to ignore BookTube. Despite the fact that I am despised, I am a booktuber. And I love the community, even though the community doesn't love me back. So that's the reading master plan. And then there are the details, right? The specific details, which, keep in mind, I'm very much interested in when you make this video, because I am fascinated by the nosy details of your life. And that one of them would be, where are you going to read? My reading locations will not change. They are the little, very inviting little old bed in this little book room and the fainting couch out in the other room. The fainting couch is a little bit less hospitable in the winter because it's in a sort of forlorn corner of one room. There are windows directly on both sides of it, and that was because, I chose that specifically because 9/10 of the time, 9 months out of the year, that makes it extra beautiful. There's a flow of air, there's bird song, there's a different light. It's just wonderful. Nine months out of the year, that makes it just wonderful. It's only in the heart of what we used to call winter. It's going to be 55 degrees all week long here in Boston in the middle of, at the end of January. So I don't think we're going to get anything like a winter, but it can still get a little chilly in that corner. But even so, those are the two places. I'm not really going to read anywhere else because I don't really go anywhere else. I'll do reading on public transit if I need to do that. But I imagine a lot of you are different. You probably have maybe a chair in the study or maybe a spot in the living room. Maybe you go to the library to read. Maybe you read at work. I want to hear all about it. And then there's when I read. Well, that you already know if you watch this channel, is all the time. I read a lot. I take care of my little schnauzer. We cuddle, we play, we talk, we go out for walks whenever she wants to. But that's not much of the day. She's very much an indoor dog. I've noticed. She loves going out for her walks, seeing the neighborhood, screaming at people to fuss over her. But she's also perfectly happy being indoors, even on a nice day. I'm noticing that as she gets a little older, she's perfectly happy to just hang out and isn't always hankering to go outside. She's not all that fond of a lot of what outside can do. She doesn't like strong wind. She'll just stand there and stare at it. She doesn't like rain at all. She doesn't really like snow. She doesn't really like a wet ground. She doesn't like the heat. She charges right through it, but she doesn't like it. It hurts her really bad. She's not all that fond of the cold either. So I mostly read just around the clock. So that's the when, and I want to hear those answers from you of your own reading master plan. Now that's as much as I plan. But I imagine there are a lot of you who plan a lot more concretely than that. And I want to hear about that. Sarah at the Bookish Knitter has spreadsheets galore. I'm sure that Olive has a spreadsheet or two. She's been known to like spreadsheets. I'm sure that a lot of you looked at Ollie's video and thought, well, that's a counterpart to how in-depth I plan my own year's reading. I want to hear all about those plans. I also want to hear how typically well you do at following them. Does that kind of structure help you as a reader? I would love to hear it. So anyway, that's a nice long video about my reading master plan for 2023. Huge number of BookTube events, huge number of new releases, and a huge number of serendipitous older purchases at the Brattle Bookshop. So let me hear from you on the subject. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.